Kip, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Yeah, I'm excited. Thanks for having me.
This will be a blast. So, for the one listener who doesn't know who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, I think it's known as scam baiting. The idea is baiting a scammer to go through their script and make them believe that I'm the perfect target. So yeah, a lot of fraud investigations, a lot of scam research, and my sort of I'm a bit famous on the internet for making scammers really angry. There's a meme, do not redeem, where I built this fake Google Play store and I would pretend to, of course the scammers want the gift card, and I would start typing the gift card on my fake Google Play store and redeem it, and they would be screaming do not redeem and getting really angry because they were losing the money. But yeah.
So what got you started in this space?
Yeah, so I'm a software engineer by trade and by heart. I've always been into computers and tech. And about 8 9 years ago, I heard about the tech support scam, the fake virus pop up type scam. And my grandma had dementia, grandpa had Alzheimer's. They had gotten taken advantage of by a bunch of different types of scams. And as soon as I saw that fake virus, I thought my grandma would definitely believe this. She has to trust people. If someone called her on the phone and said, "I'm Microsoft, there's a virus on your computer," she would definitely go along. And that was sort of, I don't know if you've had these moments in your life where you just get this spark of passion, or I got to do something about this. And I started calling the phone numbers because I thought if I spent 10 minutes on the phone, that was 10 minutes they weren't talking to my grandma or someone's grandma. And that I just did that in my free time. And then I wouldn't shut up about it. I talked about it all the time. And some of my friends told me, maybe you should stream it so we can watch. And so I started streaming it on Twitch maybe 8 years ago to a couple friends. And one day some random viewer showed up there and they shared a clip on Reddit. And then the next thing you know, there were 20 or 30 people watching me, and then 200, and then 2,000, and then 20,000. And it just became my life.
That's crazy. Something you never
Yeah,
planned on doing.
for sure. Yeah, it had nothing to do with it. And the name Kitboga has nothing to do with scamming or scam baiting or tech at all. So, yeah.
Did the name predate Twitch in that? Okay.
Yeah, it's just I used to play a game called Age of Empires, and it's like a video game. And there's a Mongolian warlord named Kitboga. It has nothing to do with this world, but yeah.
I'm gonna date myself. I don't even remember the book. I used to. Okay, so back in my youth, I ran a BBS out here in Southern
Mhm.
California, predating the internet. I know I'm ancient, and I went by the moniker Lord Barrick, which was a character from. Gosh, I don't even remember what the book was, but it was. I went by that moniker for
Yeah,
10 or 15 years, and then moved on eventually. But we
yeah,
pick up things from our youth that are fun for us.
yeah, and it sticks with you, and you never know what's going to happen.
I love it. So before we kind of dig in, one of the questions I like to ask my guests, particularly those that are in the counter fraud and counter scam space, is if you've ever been a victim of a fraud or a scam. And the reason why I ask this is because if you and I can't get it right 100% of the time, our audience shouldn't feel ashamed or embarrassed if it happens to them. And so, do you have a story that you can tell?
Yeah, uh, a few. I mean, I think when I was younger, back to the video game days, I was a big RuneScape fan. And for anyone listening that knows RuneScape, there's like some popular scams where they would tell you, oh, if you know drop your money on the ground in this specific spot, it'll double the money or something. And of course, I fell for some of those sorts of things early on. But I would say the most serious one was maybe 2 years ago. So this is, I've already had been doing this for quite a few years, I got a message from somebody on Discord, maybe even more than one person. And for those that don't know, Discord is kind of like a messaging app, sort of like a Slack or Teams or something. And they said, Kit, there's this Discord channel where someone is impersonating you, and they are really gross. They're doing adult stuff, kind of trying to trick people into sending like nudes or things like that. And of course, I know this is a scammer or something weird's going on.
Yeah.
But I click all those sketchy links and I go to all those things because I want to bait the scammers, right? I'm thinking maybe this will be a YouTube video or something. I'll go figure out who this person is. So I click the link to join the Discord, and something pops up and says I have to scan this QR code to prove that I'm not a robot and all that. And I think, whatever, no big deal. And so I try to scan it, and it didn't work. It said that I had to log in to Discord. I'm like, oh, that's weird. Let me try it again. And it still didn't work. And so then I scanned it with a emulator, like a phone emulator that I use for scam baiting. And sure enough, what happened is I was authenticating to Discord through this QR code, and I lost that fake account on my emulator like immediately. And the only reason I didn't lose my Kitboga account is because I sort of obfuscate my life. I segment my life so my personal phone doesn't have my Kitboga stuff on it on purpose. But I scanned it with my phone. If I would have had the Kitboga logged in, I would have lost the Kitboga account. Because I just wasn't. So anyway, it was one of those. I wasn't quite thinking about it. It was right time, right place, and it can happen to anybody.
Yeah, like that's the thing I consistently hear from people that are kind of in the space. It was the right scam at the right time. They were busy or concerned about something, and this just made sense that this would be happening.
Didn't seem that big a deal to prove you're not a robot. This happens all the time.
That's awful. That's like, to me, it's like, okay, like, can we trust anything online?
I don't know. I maybe that could be the whole topic of the episode. I think I've been trying to preach much more skepticism when it comes to things online, especially with the way AI is advancing. I don't know if you saw. Did you just see that WAN 2.2 animate stuff that came out?
No, I haven't.
There's some models that are just coming out now every month, it seems like, that are revolutionary deepfake type tech or ways to mimic things. And
So what was, let's talk about that, because I think this is perfect. Like back when I started doing this, my site is back in 2000, and I've been dealing with people that have been scam victims and talking about this for a decade or more. And when I started, it was very easy of like, well, just jump on a video call with them. And if they won't jump on a video call, then clearly they're not real. If they won't do a FaceTime, or if the FaceTime is really grainy and blotchy, and they say, oh, I'm at the airport. Oh, I'm traveling. I'm, in this exotic foreign land that has no good internet. Like that was your signal on the dating app. Hey, here's a red flag, 100%, just walk away at that point. So what are some of the red flags that you think used to be clear and true that are no longer true?
Yeah. Oh, gosh. I say the same thing, because I think you used to be able to do the same thing with emails, where you could tell people, well, look at who's sending you the email, for example. Make sure that it is coming from the right source, make sure it's trustworthy. And I think we really hammered that home.
Yeah.
There was a lot of education around that. But then now, like, I don't know if you've seen this or it's come up much on the show, but just today I had multiple submissions from the community where scammers are sending you DocuSign messages that say your account's been hacked or whatever, call this 1-800 number to to speak with customer service, but it comes from DocuSign.
Yeah.
And it looks very legitimate. Or they do that with PayPal. They send business PayPal invoices to you but then in the description they can type whatever they want, and they say, this is Best Buy, call our 1-800 number. And so that advice doesn't work anymore because it came from PayPal. And that's the legitimate PayPal email address. And yeah, I think there's lots of stuff like that happening right now. Video calls are a huge one. I used to say the same thing, especially with romance scams.
Yeah.
Call them, talk to them on the phone. I had someone pretending to be Jason Momoa, the Aquaman, and to my surprise, they started chatting with me on WhatsApp and did a voice call, but they were using a sort of deepfake kind of chat software, and we were having a real-time conversation. They were holding up, you could tell, like I have a trained ear, let's say, because I've done this so much. He was holding his phone up to his laptop.
Yeah.
And that's how he was doing it. But to someone who doesn't realize it, I mean, it sounded like you were talking to Jason Momoa, and this is happening right now.
Yeah. And that's the unfortunate thing is, like, now I feel bad about all the advice I've given because it's no longer valid. It's like, well,
stuff changes. Yeah, I felt a bit similar in the past too, because people would ask, like, a big one. I don't know if this resonates for me. When people would ask for advice, I would often say, whether you think that you're receiving $1 million or you think you owe $1 million, urgency is going to be the big key. But with things like the investment scams and pig butchering and stuff, it's a slow game.
Yeah.
Like the way the scheme works is almost by definition the opposite of that. You put a little money in, it goes up over time, you believe it's real, and so that urgency suddenly goes out the window, and you've now spent 6 months, quote, trading on a platform, even though you were never trading in the first place.
Yeah.
So yeah, I felt bad about that advice as well, but I think it's still, I'm sure your advice, just like some of mine, still stands in some cases. So I wouldn't feel too bad.
The be cautious about everything advice now still stands. Like,
yeah,
the interesting evolution that I've seen, I think I've talked about it before, is I had someone contact me about the investment scam, and I didn't get the whole background of how it got started, but he put in like 10 grand and to the fake investment stock, the fake app, and at some point it was up like 40 or 50 grand. And the person, the scammer was like, hey, you're up 50 grand. What you should do is take out 5 grand now. That way, if it goes down, you at least have a good chunk of your money out. And so they got 5 grand back out. And that was the confirmation to them for later on to put their life savings in it, to convince family and friends to dump all of their money in it, because it was like, well, it couldn't be a scam because I got some money back.
Yep. And what strikes me as intriguing there too is it's that the scammer prompted it. So now you think that they're also giving you good advice.
Yes.
Right? Like they care about me, they're giving me good investment advice. They want to make sure that I don't risk it all and I don't get any money. And of course, the scammer's happy to give you a little bit of money.
Yeah.
Because now they know, and they still haven't lost anything. They're still up 5,000 or whatever it was, and they're betting on you putting your life savings in there, which is becoming really common now.
And that's scary, is that it's not like they've given up on the quick game of like, how much money can I get out of this person tomorrow or today versus how much can I string them for over the course of the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months before we yank all their money.
Yeah, I think that's been maybe the biggest change that I've seen in the past 8 years of doing this has been that exact sentiment. I mean, it was go buy a $500 gift card when I started. And now that still exists some, but it's very normal for these scammers to spend months or years manipulating someone, going after their entire life savings. It's $500,000.
Yeah.
It's scammers on Telegram and Facebook groups right now selling leads to other scammers, pretending to be Charles Schwab and Fidelity and like investment. They're going after your 401k now, not the $500 gift card. And yeah, it's very scary.
Yeah, my dad had one of those where he got a call from an investment company. It was one that he didn't do business with, but he was concerned enough about the call to like, well, I'm not going to talk to this person. I'm going to hang up and then call back that investment company at a known good number to confirm that someone hasn't set up an account in his name.
Yeah.
My dad's good enough to know, like,
Yeah.
stop, disconnect, and do something that you know is real. But even that is getting a little bit squirrely with, oh, what are you going to do? You're going to go to Google and you're going to search for the right phone number?
Mm-hmm. And they run an ad.
And they're running an ad with a fake phone number in it. It's only up for like 45 minutes, but it's 45 minutes where people are calling in on that fake number.
Yep.
Uh, uh, this whole thing just like gives me the creeps whenever I talk about it. So maybe this is an inside baseball question. I know back, years ago, I used to, when I got those phone calls, I had the same mindset of you did. Well, let me see if I can waste 10 minutes of this person's time. It's 10 minutes of time they're not going to scam somebody else. Sure. And I stopped because I got alerts on my watch saying your heart rate is like through the roof. my watch is thinking I'm having a heart attack because I'm getting like, just the whole thing. There was more drama than I can handle in my life. Did you get that yourself now, or is this just all so common that it's just like you're talking to a friend, or not a friend, but you're just talking to anybody? You mean.
Yeah, I think that it has changed. Of course, in the beginning, it was a lot more learning. I didn't know exactly what was going on, so every call was kind of a fresh new experience. I still remember one time a scammer started threatening my family, and I actually got concerned for a minute, thinking like, what if I did mess up? What if he does know where I live? Yeah. What if he is going to come hurt my family? Whereas now I'm not worried about that at all. I think at a lot of instances I know the script better than they do. So, but occasionally there are scams that are new or newer, and I feel much more engaged in that sort of flow state, but also nervous at times, wondering what's going to happen. Lately, I've been getting into some situations where the scammers want to get on a Zoom call, or I have to deepfake. I have to look older than I actually am, and so I start to get, my heart races a little bit. I at one point I was kind of like changing. This is just a video recording. I have a green screen behind me, but this is essentially what I'm looking at right now. But I remember redoing my office and putting like a plant and a lampshade and all this stuff, and even like trying to make it look like I just live in a house instead of a green wall behind me, because I wanted them to believe the Zoom call. And then my heart's racing, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. Whenever there's something new, you're like, "Oh, this is exciting! I finally got something that's new."
Yeah, and I don't know if this relates or not to where the conversation may go, but I think AI is interesting and certainly going to be a huge part of our lives, especially when it comes to scams. But I look at the Microsoft fake virus pop-up that I got started on, say, 9 years ago. It still exists today. I got a message from someone today whose family lost thousands of dollars to that exact scam. It has barely changed in 9 years. They are not using AI. Maybe they're using AI to, spin up servers faster or something, right? But it's not apparent. They're not deep faking anything. They're not using this cutting edge state of the art technology. And so sometimes, like, I'm happy to talk about AI, but sometimes I think about, gosh, these techniques work. This is a decade old, and they're making billions of dollars off of this scam. And so it almost compounds it. And you could say, well, it's only going to get worse if they start using AI, and we still haven't solved the problem.
I mean, think about like the original. I don't, maybe they're not even original, but I know back like pre-internet days, the Nigerian scam was a fax machine scam. They would
Yeah.
send the faxes to people in accounting departments because they were the
Hmm.
ones who had access to the money and thought, with this thought that like if the person in finance is a little bit compromised or struggling with their finances, they see this message and like this is their, well, I'll take a little bit of the company money, spend it here, I'll get this huge return, and then I'll give the money back to the company and no one will ever know. And I'll be
Yeah.
out of my financial. It's like it's a tried and true scam that's been around for
Hmm.
30 years and still works today.
And it
Even though
reminds
we
me,
even though we joke about it and it even has a name, there's still it
yeah,
still gets people.
yeah, I think, Chris, today as well, somebody sent me a picture of their parents got a letter in the mail saying that someone with the same last name as them left, $10 million
Yeah.
to them. And I'm thinking, gosh, this is decades old, but it's still, it's still alive and well. I think,
It was a postal letter scam,
yeah,
like a
like
physical mail, or was it an email?
well, interestingly, it was essentially a carbon copy of the email, the
Yeah.
classical kind of Nigerian prince sort of 419 scam, but they printed it out on letterhead and mailed it to to this to this person, so it seemed a little bit more legitimate.
Well,
And they
of
started,
course, if it doesn't come, if it came through the mail, it must be legitimate.
yeah, yeah, they were pretending to be a lawyer, and there was all this money in their name, and I don't know how much the that particular scam has advanced, but you know, part of this conversation, I think, is how, I don't know if not industrialized, but there's this scale that's happened in the fraud world and the
Yeah.
scam world where we have these organized criminal organizations, maybe industrialized is the
Yeah.
right word, billions and billions of dollars reinvesting into their tech and figuring out ways to scam people. I was talking to someone a couple months ago, and they said, Kit, if you take a look at the fraud statistics, I mean, the amount of the billions that they're stealing just in the U.S. is enough to put Scam Incorporated in the S&P 500. Like these are big, big dollars, and it's hard to wrap your head around
I
it because
know.
you just hear $1 billion, and you're like, okay, that's a lot, but it's it's devastating amounts. And I think globally last year it was $1 trillion, right?
Oh,
I mean, these are GDPs of like nations, right?
yeah, the scale of it is just baffling, and it's not just like, well, there's this
Yeah,
one entity that's doing it. There are dozens, hundreds, thousands. I don't know.
yeah,
It's not just like, hey, it's the Bob cartel is running this. It's
right. It's all over the world, and the AARP put out a report this year that, if I remember correctly, it's 89% of people that knew they got scammed did not report it to the government or the police. So let's call it 90%. I mean that's like, so
it's an order of magnitude more that like we thought it was a $1 trillion
yes,
problem. It's really a $10 trillion
it
problem.
could be 10 trillion. And then I was just talking to a friend, and I said, well, okay, those are the people who knew they got scammed and didn't report it. And so what about all the people who don't know they're being scammed?
Yeah.
And so that $10 trillion problem, I mean, what is it? What? And yeah, it's, to me, it's like the fight of uh my life. It's something that I don't see. I don't think I'll be. Sometimes people ask me, like, well, Kit, if you're going after all these scammers, what are you going to do when the scammers are gone? And I'm like, well, I, I don't know if they will ever go away. But even if I am not making YouTube videos anymore, like there's just so much work to do in the scam and fraud world that I can't imagine stopping because, yeah.
I will happily retire on a beach somewhere. That's what I'm going to do if it goes away. I mean,
Yeah.
history
Yeah.
unfortunately says it's not going to go away. It's just going to morph.
Yeah.
So how often do you actually? Okay, so a couple of questions, and I think I already kind of know one of the answers to this because you already led a little inside baseball. How much of the scams come from that you interact with are coming from your own devices and own phone numbers, which I assume you've got about 1,000 phone numbers, and how many are coming from your viewers submitting them to you?
Yeah. And there's a third category too, I think. So hmm, I was it's a lot from the community,
Yeah,
and we also have I have a team now that helps research, and we have like almost a scam crawler. If you think of how Google like crawls the internet for things, we've built different tech that's like constantly crawling for scams, or we like ingest different feeds that we then look at and see if we can find similarities. You probably know this.
yeah.
Some of the viewers or listeners probably know that where there's one scam, there's often many more. So one domain name that's hosting a fake bank website, you do a reverse DNS and oh, looky there, they're
Hey,
hosting 17 more fake bank. So we do a lot of that too, where we kind of expand on the threat intel that we get. So when someone in the community says, "Hey Kit, my mom almost fell for this scam," or "Hey Kit, I fell for this investment scam," we take that little bit of information that we get, and then sometimes it turns into 5 or 6 other scams.
and so do much come from your own devices? Like
Yeah, yes and
like
no.
luckily recently I've been getting very few calls, but those kind of ebb and
Yeah.
flow.
So I personally don't get a lot of scam calls. My secret is that I use VoIP numbers on my
Yeah.
phone, and I've really never used the only people that know the number that was given to me by the phone carrier are like my mom and my wife and my siblings, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't ever fill it out anywhere. I don't use it for anything. And then I have like 8 different VoIP numbers that all go to my phone, and I pass this. Some again, I go back to this like segmentation sort of. My doctor and medical has one number. My bank has a different number. When I go shopping, it has a different number, and I can just ditch these numbers whenever I
Yeah.
want if it's involved in a breach or if I get tons of spam calls. But what I've found with the VoIP numbers is that because they're old recycled numbers that probably were once spamming
Yeah.
themselves, they usually don't show up on lists, and
Oh,
scammers usually
interesting.
don't want to contact you because like it's already like a spam number. But anyway, I don't know if that works for everybody, but it's worked well for me. Now on the Kitboga side, I will say quickly, I probably maintain about 50 numbers at any given time, and some of those are on lists, and I certainly get texts every day from scammers, and I get calls every day from scammers. So, but yeah,
And how often do those numbers get burned in the sense that once a scammer realizes, and I assume every now and then someone goes, "Oh, I know exactly who I'm talking to," and
yeah,
okay, goodbye, thanks, Kit, have a nice day. How quickly do those once the number's been burned, does it like seem to get burned everywhere?
yeah, not too often because I don't think a lot of the call centers are sharing information between each other. Like that's kind of every man for themselves. So I don't think they're in this group chat saying, "Oh, here's Kitboga's phone number." Sometimes I have to get a new number, but honestly, it's Chris. It's because I leak the phone number during a live stream, and then everyone watching the live stream wants to call it. So it's
I think you usually put your hand in,
yes,
like if I remember
yeah,
right, you put your hand in front of your mouth, but occasionally,
yes,
whoops, we got a digit or two.
yes, exactly.
Is it hard to maintain kind of personas at like I'm live streaming, so I have to interact with my audience in a sense, and then I'm dealing with a scammer and kind of that what are they context shifting?
Sometimes I mean, I've just had practice now. It's been 8 years. I've gotten, I think it's almost second nature where I can bounce between and like muscle memory and just pressing certain buttons. Um, but yeah, I think the hardest is when, and I don't know if this is exactly where you were going, but there are times where I'm in character pretending to be an older gentleman or something. And the scammer's threatening me and screaming. And I knew everyone watching and myself, it's almost like this inside joke. It's almost funny because the scammer thinks that I am the perfect, target, and I'm doing something ridiculous. I'm instead of going to the bank, my car broke down and I'm trying to fix a flat tire or whatever it is, some ridiculous scenario. And the hard part is every once in a while I just get hit with this moment where like it's funny, but then you go, the scammer thinks this is real. Like they're screaming and basically torturing who they think is just an average everyday person. They don't think it's me. So sometimes that's the hardest shift, is like finding the humor and making this light. Because I found one of the best ways to educate people is to provide some humor to it. But yeah, there's days where I end the stream and I just have to like kind of take my dog for a walk or something and like get my head straight before I go see the kids, because there's some dark stuff out there.
Yeah, I can imagine it. It's not real, but the emotional taxing of that awareness of this is how this person is treating another human being. It's got to be kind of akin to law enforcement and seeing people on the worst days of their lives, in a sense.
Yeah. And I think it's still, there's a bright spot because, well, they're doing it to me. And like so there's still this, on the flip side, there is this joy almost when they're getting mad, because I'm thinking, okay, well, they don't know, and they're putting up with this nonsense. It's almost cathartic in some ways. But yeah, I would say that's just been the trickiest part of my job. Is it's like this two-edged sword of, we've made them really angry, like the do not redeem stuff. They're just screaming because they think they're losing money, and it's like, yes, they've gotten a little bit of what they deserve. But then you're just like, gosh, this is what these guys do all day long.
I mean, that's the disturbing thing, is like, it must work, otherwise they wouldn't be doing it. So them screaming and yelling and cussing grandma out must actually yield results.
Yeah, I will say, though, I have noticed that they do it a lot less now than they used to. And I don't know if it has anything to do with... sorry. I don't know if it has anything to do with, scam baiting getting more popular and they don't want to show up on a YouTube video, or if it's just they realized, okay, we really can't start screaming because people hang up. But...
yeah. So how often do you end up speaking with victims of scams?
Yeah. I wouldn't say every week, but I mean almost every week. I guess it just depends. So me personally, it's different because I have like a team now. I have a lot of people that are behind me. And so I'd say someone in, Kitboga Incorporated, a few times a week, if not every day, is interacting with a victim. And then we work with a lot of like law enforcement or different like victim advocacy groups that will help us. But I would say myself, a handful of times a month, I'm personally on the phone talking to somebody, and usually they're a bit more intricate cases, or we got caught up in something. So, like, for example, we have this fake Bitcoin exchange that we pretend to give scammers money. They have to log into this website to try to get their Bitcoin. Yeah. And occasionally they get so frustrated that they'll just ask the victim, some other victim, to try to log in and call this phone number and get the Bitcoin. And so I'll just answer the phone because I'm expecting it to be a scammer, but then it's someone who has no idea what's going on, and they're actually a victim. And so right there in the moment, I'm able to kind of walk through what's going on.
Are they receptive to the idea that they're a victim, or they usually think, oh, no, you're the scammer, you're trying to victimize me, but the other person is the real person?
Yeah. Sometimes I run into that where they think that I'm a scammer, especially if we know a scam is going on and you overhear a phone number
Yeah.
or something and you start calling them. The hardest by far are romance scams because they take a lot of time, and then there's like love and kind of psychology involved where the person truly believes they're talking to Brad Pitt. Or I had this one gentleman, I'll keep the story quick, but older gentleman, his wife had Parkinson's, and he was taking care of her, just an awful disease.
Yeah.
And over the course of 2 or 3 years, they became friends with who they both thought was Emma Watson on Facebook. They were, big fans of, I think, like her work. And so they became pen pals, and they would talk a few times a week. And as his wife was dying, she said, I give you permission to like pursue whatever happens with Emma. You guys are close. I don't want you to be alone. And this scammer waited 2 or 3 years
Wow.
to ever ask for money. And so he waited until his wife passed away to start asking for money. And he thought it was real. And like, it's so hard to explain that to somebody, 2 or 3 years of your life. Thankfully, we were able to get like law enforcement and some special help for him, but those are the worst ones.
Yeah, the people that I've talked to, kind of interviewing on the show and whatnot, have always talked about the hardest aspect for them in moving forward is not that I don't trust other people, but I don't trust myself to be able to evaluate other people. So it's not like I think everybody's out to get me, therefore I'm going to be paranoid. It's I don't trust my ability to identify who's good and who's bad. And constantly in this state of I don't know versus it's at least like people can manage that everybody is bad. I'm going to stay away from everybody, but that I can't trust myself is the harder position that some
when you're
people end up in.
trying to work with people or do some business collaboration, and you're kind of wondering like, well, what's really going on here? Kind of always looking over your shoulder. Yeah, sure. I get that way a bit with stuff, especially in my personal life, where it's you get the emails or the phone calls, or like the other day, we had to replace one of our credit cards because we had lost it, right? And like I got a call from my credit card company because they're like, did you actually report your credit card stolen? And I was trying my best not to be mean on the phone, but I was like, why are you calling me? Like, who are you? How did you get my number? And I was really kind of abrasive because I'm immediately thinking like, you shouldn't be calling me right now. And it actually was my credit card company. Yeah. And of course I called them back and all this stuff. I did all the check boxes, but yeah.
Yeah, that's tough. Have you had much success in working with law enforcement? In like feeding them or banks and saying, hey, I know this bank account is being used for fraud. Hey, someone's mailing money to this physical address. Have law enforcement gotten to the point where they're receptive to tips, so to speak, from you?
Yeah, lots of success in the bank fraud world, and we're actually kind of expanding that too, where we've created a bunch of AI bots that are talking to scammers all day long. And I mean, we're gathering hundreds and hundreds of accounts each month at this point. We'll probably get to the point where we're gathering thousands of accounts that then we can pass on to law enforcement and fraud departments and kind of work with their fraud team. But that's been really great over the years, especially when it was smaller scale. It was easier to just like I have email addresses for people at certain banks and certain law enforcement agencies. The hardest part is with law enforcement, they're just overwhelmed with scams. So the tricky one is, gosh, someone losing $50,000 or a scammer that isn't moving millions of dollars just becomes not as interesting for most three-letter agencies,
Yeah,
right? Because there's so much going on, and that's hard.
And that's the side. There's bigger fish to fry than someone who lost $100,000,
which is crazy because it's life-changing, devastating. But yeah, I don't know exactly what the answer is. Whatever it is, I hope that I have the opportunity to be a part of it. I think that in some ways there just has to be more public-private partnerships. I know in Australia and different countries they're starting to form. I think Canada has an anti-scam center now. Australia has. I know it's not just the government's going to solve everything, but I would love to see some more support from the government. I don't really see a lot of grants coming out right now. So for example, maybe we'll talk about it later, but I've been building some software and doing different things to help people in the scam world, and like I can't just go to there is no grant out there, at least that I know of, that will help do things like that. And I mean, imagine someone right now wants to build some tech to fight back against scams, and it's all like private equity. It all has to be self-funded, and I hope that some of that improves in the future.
And the unfortunate thing is, like, for someone to build this stuff, the private equity almost has to be philanthropy, because no one's going to go, hey, I'm going to make $100 million a year fighting scams. Like, there are niches where, sure, you've got a YouTube channel, you know, there's things like that can, but that's not scalable to the government. You know, the U.S. government is not going to start up their own YouTube channel doing scam baiting.
No. And I think there's also this other problem with, because it's so much data and because there's so much going on, it's like who do you talk to, especially in the government, because they're all so busy. So I would certainly love to see them step up their game and provide more support for people. A buddy of mine likens it onto the war on drugs, where it wasn't. We suddenly realized, like, this is a really big deal, and we got to make the DEA. We got to what was it, DARE and Scruff McGruff, and I don't know, all the different stuff that started. This became a big thing, and it still is a big thing. And I think we need to get to the point where we're saying, like, there's this war with scams. It's a state of emergency on scams kind of a thing, because it's just poses a really, really big threat, I think, to everybody.
So you alluded to it, and you talked about being a software developer. You have developed some software in this space.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. So it kind of was birthed out of, or the idea came to us because a friend of mine, a friend of a friend, they basically fell for this tech support scam, the one I got started with and we've been talking about. They went to the bank to wire $30,000 or $40,000. Thankfully, the bank teller asked the right questions and stopped this. Like, amazing. I think bank tellers are probably underrated in the fraud space, and like some unsung here. If they have the right education, I think they could be preventing like tons and tons of scam. So anyway, they call my friend frantically. They're crying. They're panicked. I don't know what happened. I fell for this scam. And so my friend calls me, and we're on this conference call, and she's crying. And like, what do I do? And we're trying to walk her through how to clean her computer, because you probably know this, but the scammers love to get on people's computers and personal devices, because then they can control your whole life. They can see your webcam, your emails, all this stuff. They can control your bank account. And so I'm trying to explain to this older individual who's not tech savvy how to clean their computer, and they don't even want to touch the computer because they're terrified of what just happened. They know that they still think that they got hacked. You and I know that it was tech support scammers. Anyway, so we're like, oh, gosh, what do we do? What do we do for this person? Just tell them to go to Best Buy? And we know that in a lot of cases that doesn't fix the problem either. So we said, what if we built some software to clean up people's computers and like to remove all the remote connections after someone's been scammed. So we worked on that. It's free. It's called Serif Secure. Serif, like an angel, seraphim.
Mm-hmm.
Serif Secure. And we built this tool to basically almost like we liken it onto if you got your house broken into, you know, the police show up and they clear your house and they make sure that there's no one in there anymore. So this is like a tool to clean up your computer. And then while we were building it, we said, well, we wouldn't have to do it just reactively.
Yeah.
We could do it proactively as well. So now we added some new features where it'll like if you have it installed, it won't let those remote connections happen in the first place. It blocks thousands of websites, stuff like that. So the idea is I just don't want my mom. I mean, I've been doing this 8-9 years. I just don't want my mom to ever run into the scammers that I run into. And I think part of what we've been talking about is how quickly it's changing and how devastating it can be. And so I think basically anti-scam sort of software is going to become a big deal, whether it's the software that I'm working on or other companies are working on or starting to work on. It's like you remember antiviruses when they first came out. There was anti-spyware, anti-rootkit, anti-malware, anti-this, anti-that, and that was all new. And then it basically became a household name. Like everyone just has some. And then Windows Defender came out, right? And so I think we're at that point right now where we need anti-scam stuff,
software,
and eventually it'll become a household thing.
I like it. I think that's super helpful. So as we wrap up, like I hate to ask, like I'll ask this question because the normal questions be, what's the advice that you'd give people? And you're going to repeat the same, 8 things that everybody else repeats or 5 things or whatever.
Yeah.
What's the advice that people aren't getting that they need to hear? And then maybe you can tie it in with scam recovery. Oh,
wow. That is becoming a really big problem. So let's talk about scam recovery. I try not to use the word hate too much, but
loathe.
I hate, I loathe, really don't like, I hate the scam recovery stuff. For those unaware, it's essentially the scam after the scam.
Yeah.
We're dealing with this big crypto Ponzi scheme right now that we've been working on getting shut down for months, and it's finally collapsing and falling apart. But now all of the victims are being contacted by the same scammers saying, hey, we found out that you got involved in this scam and we're here to help you recover your money. And some of them are believing it, and it's so hard for us to tell them. And they're in their mind, they're like, I just lost $50,000. If I have to go get a loan or talk to a friend to pay another $1,000 to potentially get my $50,000 back, it's worth it. But it's not true. It's not real. You can almost never get this money back. So a lot of people aren't talking about that. I think, you're right that a lot of the advice I would give, or a lot of people say a lot of the same things. I think skepticism is certainly still really important. The other, I guess I would jump to things like AI. We are in the time right now where people can deepfake and clone your voice in 5 seconds, and you can get phone calls and be on Zoom call. I mean, I just think about that. I didn't even bother to figure out, like, am I really talking to you right now? But we are 100% in that time period right now. We've been talking about it for months or years, but at this point, it is entirely possible for most of this conversation to have been faked. Now, I don't think maybe the average person needs to worry about that just yet, but it's next
on the
year.
horizon. It's on the horizon.
Yeah, it could happen. It is happening to like CEOs and CFOs and stuff. And then lastly, of course, it's a tie-in to why we built the software, but we're just trying to shout from the rooftops, so to speak, about remote connections, because I think a lot of people don't realize how devastating they are. Once a scammer is on your device, especially your desktop.
Yeah.
I mean, they can connect at any time. Even if you realize that it's a scam, we have case after case where someone's filling out an IC3.gov report and the scammer's watching. And then they call back from your local police department phone number and they see the IC3.gov information and they just scam you again. And right now on FTC.gov and a lot of bank websites, FBI websites, they don't tell you to remove the remote connections from your computer. And we've been trying to convince them to update their websites. That's part of why we built Serif Secure, was to so people could remove these connections. But to me, that's just one of those things that needs to be talked about over and over and over and over again. Whether or not you want to use our software is fine, but you have to clean your computer. If you think you let a scammer on your computer, like you have to get them off, because they'll just continue to re-victimize people. And I think in the bank fraud world, that's part of how people, like the account takeover and that type of stuff is happening. So.
And so Serif Secure is serifsecure.com.
Yeah.
That's easy. Why would you make it simple?
Yeah.
You have to use the funny little A and the E with the no.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, imagine. Funny, it is. Yeah, we had so many different names we wanted to use, and it's like you can never. Every domain name's been registered at this point.
Yeah. Yes. And it gets churned every 2 minutes.
Yes. My gosh.
If people want to find you online, where's the best place to find your content?
Yeah, I mean, I'm partial to the YouTube channel.
Yep.
That's where we put, if you just type in Kitboga, I think it's at Kitboga Show, technically, on YouTube. Or kitboga.com has links to everything. That's the easiest thing. Yeah. kitboga.com, and they'll have the link to everything you need.
And we'll make sure to link to in the show notes Serif Secure. We'll link to kitboga.com. We'll link to the YouTube channel. Not that people can't find those things, but we appreciate you being on the podcast and coming here today.
Yeah, is there anything else like on your mind? Or I know time-wise, maybe you like to keep the episode shorts, but is there anything that you think we missed? Or
yeah, so what's so you've done? Sure, let's keep talking if you've got time.
Yeah, I have a few more minutes, but I just want to make sure, like, I don't want you to feel like you have to hang up right now because I'm over time and miss a really big question that you wanted. So, like, if there's another question that you really wanted to ask, I'm happy to.
I think we're good. We'll edit all this conversation out. I think we're good. Okay. So I'm gonna stop the recording now.